Another Earth Science video. Here we go. This is Norris Teaches Science. I'm Mr. Norris in the Earth Science edition videos. Today I don't know why I keep saying we, it's just me, present data forms. So in this video you would like to say, I can discuss, I can discuss the forms of data that would be gathered during an experiment. So that's what your goal is. So let's talk about it. Data. Data is information gathered from an experiment. And there's really two types or two classifications of data. Either your qualitative data or your quantitative data. Qualitative data, I like to remember that there's an L in this type of data. This is data in words. These are mainly observations. Stuff like Mike has a blue shirt. Um, the table is short. Using your language skills is qualitative data. Quantitative data, I remember that there's an N in there. This is data in numbers. Anything that has a number in there is considered quantitative data. So observations and measurements would all be quantitative data. So the example are there are 14 tables in the house, or there's 6 legs on a ladybug, or I'm 32 years old. Stuff like that. Measurements. This is data collected during an experiment. So these are types of data. These are all going to be quantitative data because you're going to be using numbers. And some types of measurements that we're going to talk about are length, temperature, mass, volume, and density. So let's talk about the types of measurements. Length. This is straight line distance between 2 points. So in science, we usually use something called a meter stick, or we use rulers. Side note, there's 1 meter in a meter stick, just so you know. Now, the unit is meters, but you can convert between them using the metric systems. You got decimeters, centimeters, millimeters, which are smaller than a meter, and things that are larger than a meter are like decameters, hectometers, and kilometers or kilometers. Um, so length is just straight line distance. So you can measure from one end of the table to another end of the table. Next one's temperature. Temperature is how hot or cold something is. We're talking about units like degrees Celsius, degree Fahrenheit, or degrees Kelvin. Celsius is everywhere in the world but the United States. Fahrenheit is the United States. And Kelvin is a scientific unit, usually used for really hot objects. Like we usually measure the temperature of the sun in kelvins. We're going to use a thermometer when we take temperature. Mass is how much matter is in an object. So your unit is going to be grams in science. And you're going to use balances or scales. So if you look over here at the side, this is a triple beam balance, and this is a tool you're using the science classroom. So you place your object on one side of the balance. You mess with the middle one to figure out if it has 100 gram. Then you mess with the back one, see if it's 10 grams, and then at the front you use it to fine tune it so that it balances out, and then you add up the numbers. So this is 300 plus it looks like 70. So we know we're starting at 370, and then you look down, you see it's at 3, and then each one of these is 0.1. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like 3.4. So the mass of whatever object this is 373.4 grams. All right. That's how you would use a triple beam balance. Sometimes we just use the electronic one and it tells us for us. The next one is called volume. This amount of space an object takes up. Its unit is milliliters or centimeters cubed. The tools would be like a graduated cylinder or ruler. We have 2 different units and 2 different tools because it really depends on if you're taking the volume of a rock, which is an irregular object, versus the volume of, say, a shoebox, which is known as a regular object because it has defined length, width, and height, or if you're taking the volume of a liquid, because you're going to have to use the graduated cylinders. Density factors in. This is mass per unit volume. So you take your mass and you divide by your volume. So it has 2 units, grams over milliliters or grams over centimeters cubed. The reason why you have 2 units is because that volume has different um, units. And this picture over here, what you can see is that different substances have different densities and they layer in each other, with the densest thing at the bottom and the less dense thing at the top. And that's why we need to know density. It determines if something will sink or float in water. So if you have water in something, we know that the density of water is 1 gram per milliliter. So if you have a thing of water and you say place a rock in it and the rock sinks, we know that that rock's density is more than 1. We don't know exact density, but we know it's more than 1. But the rock floats, and there's a rock that does float in water. Um, it has a density less than water, so it's going to float on the top. And like I mentioned, that density helps us determine layers of liquids. You can see this in this picture here. It has all these different liquids in here. You can even see where water is, and you can layer them. Anything below water is denser than water. Anything above water is less dense than water. And the lamp oil is the least dense of these liquids, and honey is the most dense. And then you can kind of see some of the different substances that they placed in there. A ping pong ball will float on top of all of this. Soda cap, it's going to float on top of water. It's going to kind of be floating, half floating, half sinking in vegetable oil, but it's going to sink in rubbing alcohol and lamp oil. And you can see like a popcorn kernel where it's going to go when it's in there. But this is a little bit about data. I hope you learned something today. And this is Mr. Norris, and he is signing out for this video.